Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. Hey everybody, I am proud and honored, two very distinguished words, right, to have Mr. Mike Reilly on the Racing for Recovery podcast today, the voice of Ironman, a local Toledo, Northwest Ohio native, overall awesome dude. This is going to be a good one. Enjoy it. How you doing?
I am great. How you doing?
We're rolling. We're just into it right off the bat.
Okay.
I'm doing well. I'm going to ask you something that I don't know if you've ever been asked this question to start off a conversation, but I'd like to know a question that you wish someone has asked you that hasn't asked you yet.
Wow. You know, it's funny. No one's really asked me of all the 30 some years that I was on the microphone for Ironman and even other events, that when the event was over with and everybody was walking away, you know, at the end of the event, uh, what was your first thought after the event was over? Nobody's ever asked me that, because that thought was always just about the same each time, as long as far back as I can remember. And so I never shared it because nobody ever asked. And it was just kind of mine, whether I was walking back to the hotel or, you know, going back home or whatever it may be. And that's, so that's what I've never been asked, Todd.
Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I do.
Go. Let's start with that. What's on your mind with that?
Walking away from an event after it happened, and everything I saw, and the emotions and the raw emotions, and even people like yourself overcoming all kinds of odds to even get to the start line. When I walked away, I just would always say, how come I'm blessed so much to be able to be and do what just happened and what I saw. And the very next thought was always, gosh, I wish the world, I wish the world could have been a part of that and seen that passion and that joy and that success, because then we'd be living in a lot better place. Every time I walk away, I go, I'm blessed. I don't know why I'm so blessed. And I wish the world could have seen what we all just experienced at that event, at that finish line.
Well, I just want to say, for us to get started here today, and after listening to you respond that way, people use this word a lot. You know, I'm honored to talk to somebody, but I'm truly honored to be doing this with you. I was thankful that you had me on your podcast a while ago. I've always enjoyed talking to you in general, but doing it in this format, when I did it with you, was great. And I'm truly honored that you're on here today.
Well, thank you very much. I love it when people ask me to. I don't. Yeah, I've been on a few podcasts, but when someone I feel I'm close to, like yourself, I go, yeah, this would be very cool. We can have a great conversation, and maybe both of us can walk away going, I got something out of that. I'm a little better because of it. So that's, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Well, and I will say this, on a physical level, I was unaware that you ran a 2:49 marathon. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
You want to hear about my biggest debacle? I was running a lot. I was running well. And I come back and do the Toledo Marathon. At that time, the Glass City Marathon. And this was probably in 80, I don't know, 86, 87, 88. And I had trained on the hills here in San Diego, and I wanted to come back and impress my mom and dad, especially my dad, who ran track at Ohio State. All my young nephews were out there and still living in Toledo. And Todd, when I hit the halfway, I was so jacked up. When I hit the halfway point, I was like in 12th place. I had never run faster than like a 2:55. I was in 12th place. And the time I would have run if I'd have kept that pace, which I knew was insane, was low 2:30s. That's how fast I was going. Well, I ended up running 2:58. And I tell you what, it was the hardest thing of my life. The last 6 miles, everything came apart because I had gone out way too fast. Oh gosh. I think about that day going, why didn't you just run smarter, you dummy? If you'd have just paced yourself, you could have run definitely in the high 2:30s, you know? But no, I had to go out and look like I was doing 90 mile an hour the first 13 miles.
That's great. How, well, let's start with that. I mean, you're from Toledo, and I want people who, let's say there's somebody out there who doesn't know who you are. I doubt that's true in triathlon, but in maybe in regular marathoning or even from folks from Toledo, talk about how you're born and raised in Toledo, but then you end up being the voice of Ironman. Give us a quick synopsis of that journey.
Yeah, that's a leap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh I, I I would always say to people sometimes, hey, I'm just a kid from Toledo who, I wrestled in high school and college at the University of Toledo, and my brother, who's 12 years older than me, we went and visited him when we were a sophomore. I was a sophomore in high school. Drove out to California, my mom, dad, my sister, and I just couldn't believe it out here. I go, oh my gosh, they're wearing shorts and it's January. What's going on? It was just so I made a point that if I graduate from college, my reward was I would try to find a job first in San Diego, and I did. I graduated in education, and I came out and I ended up teaching special ed here in San Diego. Uh, and then I connected up with a guy who was a wrestler, and we helped coach this one high school team. And he was a racquetball player, and he would beat my butt on that. And then one time he goes, "Hey, on Wednesday night, we meet at Balboa Park, the big city park here in San Diego, and we run like 6 miles. And you want to do that with us?" And I'm thinking, well, gosh, yeah, I can do that. I ran in college cutting weight. And mind you, I probably never ran over 2 miles at one stretch. And he, we all went out on a 6 mile run on the undulating hills. And I just got beat up. I couldn't walk for 2 days, but something about that endurance thing hooked me. And then there was a couple guys in there who were talking about, hey, they're doing this swim, bike, and run thing in in Mission Bay and San Diego, and I went out there and watched that, and jumped in it the next year, and I was hooked on endurance. So I was just this kid from Toledo who came out to the San Diego at the right place in the right time, and got connected with the right group, uh, who, like Todd, you know what it's all about, became, gosh, that became family. We shared work experiences, hard race experiences, and it was a beautiful thing, and I've been in it ever since.
So you're doing the quote, the little stuff when you first get into this. How did your involvement in the participation of triathlons lead to then, you know, being the voice of the Ironman itself?
Well, I always liked the public speak. I was actually in a Toastmasters group here and loved that. And at races, race directors would say, "Hey, do you want to call the runners in?" And if I wasn't running the race, and one time I had a bad hamstring, so I went to watch my buddies, and the race director said, "Why don't you call them in?" And here's if I don't know how many of your listeners know what a dot matrix printout is, but that's what the race director gave me, of all the names of the runners. There was only about 250. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I could crank some of my friends, kind of make fun of them when they come on in. But then I started announcing people's names, and it just, the looks on their faces, like, oh my gosh, somebody acknowledged and this was like a 10K. It was, wasn't a marathon or anything, but oh my gosh, they called my name and people came up to me. Thanks a lot for shouting out and telling me congratulations. I go, hey, no problem. This was great. I'm glad you liked it. And then race directors just kept asking Todd, and I'd even be running the race or doing the triathlon. I go, no, I'm in the race. And then one said, I tell you what, I'll pay you this. And I'm thinking, what? You'll pay me to, like, for this Irishman to BS on the microphone and do what feels so natural to me. And they did. And next thing you know, I just kept doing event after event, and I'd run one, I'd announce one, and back and forth. And then word got around, and then it got around to Kona, which kind of blew me away when I got that call. How would you like to come over? This was 1989, and be the assistant announcer here in Kona. You talk about being pulled up from minor league single A ball to the major leagues in one phone call, Todd. And I couldn't turn that down.
Well, and that was not only your debut, right? But that's when Mark Allen won his first as well. So, I mean, looking back on that, your first and having him win his first, were you, I'm trying to figure, wow, I don't even know what to ask you in that, but that is a remarkable event with you two being there kind of for your first, so to speak. Do you recall like how you felt?
Oh, I recall it. If we can recall the day we're born, you'd probably the emotions and everything. But this was like I was born in triathlon that day. Not only was the Mark Allen, Dave Scott Iron War right in front of our very eyes, I was receiving splits from the course on their splits on the run, and I told the one guy called me. They were out there at payphones. They had a watch and stopwatch, and he told me at mile 2, hey, they just went through and they're running still sub fives. I go, I thought the guy was on something. I go, no, there's no way in hell these guys are running sub fives off the bike. And they were. And it just became this epic battle that set the foundation for all of triathlon. And there I was, my first year, this kid in a candy store. And I just kept going into the jar, and the good taste of the whole day just kept coming out. And I don't know, Todd, if you remember this, but that was also the advent of Rick and Dick Hoyt doing Kona.
I did not
Yeah,
know that.
Rick and Dick Hoyt, their first Kona was 89. And I'm in the tower after all the swimmers left. And I look down, and there's this guy with a dinghy strapped to him. And he starts swimming. And I said to one of the race directors, I go, what's that guy doing out there? Is he allowed to be out there? They go, no, he's a guy from Boston who's going to do the race with his son who's got cerebral palsy. I couldn't even, when they told me that, and I saw him pulling him in the raft, I go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Because in my life, I was never exposed to something so unbelievable, but yet I was seeing it with my very eyes. And I remember some of the thoughts, how am I going to go home and tell my wife about this, my friends, my family? They'll never friggin' believe me. And that was my first year, Todd. So I received a very quick 1-day diploma into this sport with that day. And Mark Allen, because we're great friends now, he always, when we're together, he'll look at somebody and go, so can you name the first professional athlete Mike called to the finish line? And everybody will go, oh, God, I don't know. He goes, it was me. It was me. It was me.
That's awesome. Well, I never really have a plan when I'm doing these things. I just wing them. So you talked about, obviously your first time, Mark's first time, and the Hoyts out there. Do you have some highlights that you can run through about just some of the most memorable finishes that you've encountered and how they affected you?
Yeah, some of my most memorable finishes are of people that nobody knows. And I'd learn about them before the event, or they'd write me a message. I would always get messages before the events Mike, this is my story. I went through this, I went through that. So, one was a 63-year-old grandmother. This was early on. This was probably 92 or three, and went through a double mastectomy. And the breast cancer, you knew about it a lot then, but when she's telling me all this, I'd go to my wife, who was a nurse. I go, what? And then my wife would say, wait, she's not doing the race. There's no way, because back then, if people had a disease or overcame cancer, it wasn't really widely, that was it. But now this beautiful woman was going to do Ironman. And when she came in, knowing her story, I only have a small amount of time to tell the story to the crowd. And back then, it wasn't online, there wasn't the internet, so I'm just talking to the crowd, and but nobody was behind her. So I told her story to everybody, and I just about lost it. And the look on her face of pure joy and not accomplishment that she crossed the finish line. I could see it in her heart. It was accomplishment that she is living and living to the fullest of her being. And where she just could have, gone through it at home with her family and friends. So, I still see her face, Todd. I still see the look on her face. And after calling and seeing over 500,000 faces, some of them like hers will be with me till the day I'm not breathing. And there's so many others, Sarah Reinerson, the first female amputee, leg amputee to attempt the race and failing. When she didn't make the bike cutoff when she came, she's from San Diego. We all know her. Sarah's a beautiful soul and trained so hard. And Todd, I was calling finishers in, and the bike cutoff was behind me on the tower in Kona. And I heard all this kind of yelling and cheering, but then I heard this crying. And I turned around, and Sarah's bent over on her knees when they told her she missed the bike cutoff. And I froze watching it. I go, this can't be happening. She can't continue. She didn't make the bike cutoff. And then one of my assistants tapped me on the shoulder. Mike, you got finishers coming in. And, I turned around, looked down Ali'i Drive, and had to go back into the mode of that positive, bringing those people in and making their day and telling the world they're an Ironman from one instant to the next. But then Sarah came back the next year with a motto of unfinished business. She actually had it, Todd, she had it painted on the down tube of her bike. Cannondale was her sponsor, and they put unfinished business on it. And she came back and finished. And seeing her come in, yeah, you just can't. You can't duplicate moments like that. They never will be duplicated.
In the two examples you've given right there, one thing, well, there's many things about Ironman I admire, but one of the things I like about it the most is it's not about the individual. It's more about whatever that individual's story or circumstances are doing for somebody else. And you just mentioned it, right there, with the woman with, the double mastectomy, and with Sarah not finishing it the 1 year and coming back. Even you yourself, we could sit and talk about all your accolades for probably hours, which there are many, but it's always talking about what we're getting out of this from inspiration from someone else. And I love that about Ironman. Every finisher has something to offer that somebody else can benefit from to go out and do it themselves. And that's one thing that it drew me to Ironman, and it's kept me here, well, since 1999. And I hear you talking about that when you're giving these examples.
And you know what's funny? People like that and others will, okay, I'm going to do a triathlon. I'm going to get off the couch and do a 5K, or I'm going to go run a marathon or do an Ironman. Their thought process isn't like, I'm going to do this because I'm going to inspire others. It's really self. And they're going, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to set this big goal and I need to improve my life and on and on. But as they get into the thick of it and they start maybe seeing what their kids and how they're looking at them, or family and friends are looking at them, and even when they're sometimes naysayers, like, why, what do you mean you got to get up at 5 a.m. and go to a swimming pool? What are you, nuts? We're going out tomorrow night, that type of stuff. And but then those same friends are just so proud of them and inspired to do great things in their lives. I've told at finish lines, I've said it over and over again. I go, everybody coming in today, you are an inspiration to everyone around you today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your life. And whether you want to be or not, you are an inspiration. And that's why Todd, I wrote my book, is because I felt some of those stories like Sarah and others, I thought it'd be like selfish of me not to share some. I mean, I could have written a Bible of the stories. I could have, book after book, but I just felt it'd be selfish if I didn't share what I saw and how it influenced me and guided my life. Cause there's every time I'd bitch and moan about something, it's like something in the back of my head would just boom, hit me with something. And I go, oh yeah, what are you bitching about? You've seen it all. You've seen, you're right. Come on, get through this. And then, we've all gone through tough times, and when they're yours, that thought process of trying to think of others that have it worse isn't always there. But I've seen it so many times. It's just, oh gosh, over and over again.
Tell me, going off of what you just said right there, you did Ironman Arizona, correct?
Me personally,
Yes.
I've never done an Ironman.
You haven't.
I never competed in an Ironman. And it 89, when I was going over there, when they asked me, I was training to do that race. And I actually first time told them, I said, well, I'm doing the race. Yeah, we saw, but we really want you to come and, be an assistant announcer. And I vacillated for a day or two thinking, no, wait a minute. And then, my wife said, well, you know what? You could always do that race. Well, once I got on the microphone, especially in Kona, and then other events came along, I went to Australia, New Zealand, and Lake Placid, the first continental US race. I go, this is my Ironman. And the funny part, Todd, is being in San Diego, I would go out and train. They go, hey, Reilly, we're training for so-and-so. We got a 100-miler we're riding. I say, yeah, I'll come along. And I'd run with them and everything. And they always say, God, you could just go do an Ironman. I go, well, I'm announcing it. I'm going to bring you in. But I didn't have the stress of race day like all of them. My stress was different. My stress was making sure I wasn't in the loo when somebody was coming in the porta potty,
I don't know why I thought I got some wrong information somewhere on that. Have you?
Well, my Arizona is a very dear race personally, because my son, after he got done playing minor league baseball, said, I'm going to do an Ironman. And I go, what? And, he was 210 pounds. Well, he went back to his high school weight of like 185. And, he went 11 and a half hours. Our best friend's son did it. My son-in-law did it, which was fantastic. So I've had a lot of my brother-in-law, who's married to my wife's twin, and I've been together with him since second grade in Toledo, and he did Arizona. So, and I'm actually going back to Arizona this year to take some books and sign some books, and it's a special place. But no, I've never done an Ironman.
Do you ever think about doing one now that you're retired from announcing?
Yes and no. My life is full, and I know what the training would do on taking away time that I spend with my grandkids. I love that, watching their baseball games, the whole deal. As a matter of fact, the weekend of Kona this year, I have a little FOMO, and I go, gosh, this is what I'd be doing. It's Wednesday. This is what I'd be doing. It's Thursday. But on Saturday, my 6-year-old grandson had a baseball game. My 10-year-old grandson had one later that afternoon. My 10-year-old grandson the next day had a basketball game. And then that Sunday afternoon, we babysat our 4-month-old grandson. Uh, and I thought about that on Sunday night. I go, what a great weekend. I got to be, well, I would have missed like I missed all that so many years, Todd. So if
Yeah.
I trained for an Ironman, it's the same thing.
Yep.
I'd be I'd be back in the mode of, well, I'm going to travel to Kona before the race or go here and train here. And so I think it's other people have a bigger desire for me to do an Ironman than I do.
Right. I hear in your answers, you're very content in
Oh
what
yeah.
you've accomplished, right? And just
Yeah.
kind of enjoying life now.
And there was a time, I'll be very candid, maybe 10 years in, 12 years in, Graham Frazier, who ran the North America races, said, you got to do Florida this year. That'd be one for you to do. It's at the end of the year. And I really thought about it and I didn't do it. And I had a little regret of not committing and doing it. Like, like I wasn't as whole of a person as I could have been, or something kind of creeped in and I didn't like that. And a friend said to me, said, yeah, but you, you got to help make 2,500 lives better. You get to do that all the time. I go, I know. And a few days later, I realized that's, that's my calling.
Yeah.
And so I became okay. People say, Reilly, you've never done an Ironman. I go, yeah, you're right. I haven't. And it was no big deal. So, because I know what the other side was, I was, they say the best thing you can do in life, Todd, as you know, is enhance and make somebody else's life happy and happier. And I got to do that 2,500 times at every race I was at.
Unbelievable. Talk about the changes you saw in Ironman over your career and where do you see it going in the future?
Oh, I've seen so many changes. Obviously, the biggest change is technology of the athletes racing, the bikes, the technology of training and diet, and so many great changes of improvement. Obviously, on the professional level, for the pros to go faster, for the age group athletes not to crawl across the finish line, all of that stuff. I've seen a lot of political change in the sport on the inner workings of it all, because it's a business, and the business had growing pains. I mean, my gosh, one year, Todd, I was at all 5 of the Ironmans: New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Kona, and Canada. Well, I could be, because there was only 5 of them. Now there's, I don't know, like 45 Ironman races.
Right.
So it became a big business. And no matter what people say and how mad they may get at the corporation, and because they do this or do that, they're still here. They're still solid. They're still helping dreams come true. And yeah, you can always bitch and moan about the monetary end of it. But I mean, my daughter plays tennis, and I can't believe what she pays for rackets and the tournament she's in. And I go, geez, oh man. But so it's all, but what I've never seen change, Todd? When that cannon goes off, it is still swim, bike, and run. And like John Collins said, the father of Ironman, then brag for the rest of your life. That has never changed. The nerves of the athletes getting in the water, getting through that 2.4 mile swim, that 112-mile bike, that marathon run, or a 70.3, half those distances. People sometimes say to me, oh, I just did a 70.3. I go, don't say it just. What are you kidding me? There's people in the world can't think about that distance without keeling over. So that has never changed. The swim, bike, and run, and getting to that finish line and the emotions of the finish line, from the first finisher I saw in 1989 of Mark Allen to the last one I saw this past July in Lake Placid, that has never changed.
Yeah. I met John at Ironman New Zealand back in 2001. And when I was talking to him, well, that race is what led to me forming Racing for Recovery. And now I wish I would have asked him if he understood the impact of what he created, but I didn't know it at the time that I was creating my own thing at the time. But it was just awesome to talk to that guy and think of a basic conversation and people bragging over who was the harder or the
Yeah.
tougher athlete, that what he has created that now for over 40 years has impacted tens of thousands of people all over the world. It's just amazing.
Yeah. He and Judy, his wife, what they created has impacted. Can you imagine that? You created something that impacted millions in a positive way, not only on that day, but for the rest of their life. Not a lot of people out there in our history that have done that. And and all those athletes like yourself and others have paid it forward. You have family, you have friends, you have workmates that now are getting in shape or eating right or doing it, just pays it forward over and over again. I have always said that at award ceremonies, I said, if the world could be like you sitting out there on how hard you work and what you accomplished, this world would be a much better place to live in just because of who you are. So, yeah, I got a great John Collins story, and I'll make it quick. It's Ironman Australia. It might have been right after the New Zealand, because he did New Zealand and Australia. Well, I get the honor of introducing John to come on stage in Australia and talk to everybody. And the buzz was just insane about John Collins coming to Ironman Australia. He had never been there before. So I had just got done talking about the dialects of the US, because Australia has dialects too, whether here in the US, you've got the Southern accent, a Northern accent. So I mimicked the California surfer. I did y'all in Texas. I ended up with y'all in Texas and everything. And I said, yeah, the Texans, they think they own the United States because I just think they're bigger than life. And I just kind of made fun. And the Australians love it when a Yank makes fun of their own. Well, I then bring up John Collins, who, was living in Panama City Beach, Florida. And I said, now for the father of Ironman, Commander John Collins, United States Navy. My podium is on left stage. He comes up to go to his on right. And I put my hand out to shake his hand, and he just walks by. He didn't even look at me or shake my hand. And I go, oh my God. And everybody kind of saw it. So I turned around and, acted like nothing happened, but sure as heck happened. He gets to his lectern, he puts his hands on both sides of that podium. And he goes, Mike, I only got one thing to say to you, boy. I'm from the great state of Texas. And the place erupted, and I looked over, I go, oh my God, I just made fun of John Collins in Texas. Oh my God. And all the Aussies just loved it because I got cranked. And I had no idea he was from
That's
Texas. I go,
awesome.
what the heck?
That's awesome. I am interested in this. What do you see in the difference between a pro triathlete doing Ironman and just the regular, quote, regular age grouper that's out there?
Pros going to work, trying
Mm,
to figure out how to produce income for themselves and balance everything they need to do to be on top of their game. The professionals, especially, I'll just, back in the Mark Allen day, Mark and Dave broke the code for anything when they did their races and did them so fast. And they didn't have the knowledge of nutrition or HPC or FT, to set their basis of their foundation of their workouts. The pros today, they've got a lot of self pressure because you, you sometimes you can only get so far in the sport. You know, you can't beat Jan Frodeno. He couldn't be beat for a while. Chrissy Wellington couldn't be beat. Paula Newby Frazier won Kona 8 times, couldn't be beat. And I was around a lot of them, and the intensity of what they did and how they approached it and how they do approach it, like everything matters. Age groupers, yes, everything matters. You got to get your sleep. You got to get up and do your workout. But then again, you're going to your kids' games, or you're trying to keep a relationship going. You've got these other things which are tough to juggle and balance with doing an Ironman. But the pros, everything is down to the minute, to the calorie, to the watt, whatever it may be, to get that edge. And I brought pros in that finished, say, third at a race, and they got on podium, and I interviewed them. You thought they won the race because they set their goals. They set the goal of what they wanted to do. They achieved it on race day. Two people just were better that day. And every pro that I've seen react that way end up winning an Ironman. The ones that react like, oh my God, I got beat. What I do wrong? You know, they have this negative about them. They didn't succeed like the others. So the pro is different from the age grouper because it is their living. They aren't going to be able to do it forever at that level. Even though we just saw Patrick Lange from Germany at 38 years old crush the Kona course. And that's another thing. I think age groupers are looking up to the pros going, my gosh, I'm in my late 30s and 40s, and those guys are getting faster and the women are getting faster. Why can't I do better? So that's the difference between the two of them.
Even watching Patrick this year, I mean, first guy to ever have that long of a gap between Kona championships, unbelievable. But another stat, I think I heard this just the other day, 16 pros finished in under 8 hours
Yes.
this year.
Yes. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, you know, it's funny. All of us that have been at Kona a long time, for some reason, Madame Pele has been very kind to all the athletes on the Queen Kahumanu Highway. The winds really haven't been there. And I've been there in years where the winds were so bad, people are riding their bike on a 20-degree angle into the wind, trying to go up to Hawi doing 4 and 5 miles an hour. And for some reason, there's been no wind. And we keep saying, and Mark Allen and I had to talk, one of these years, those winds are going to come back. So that course, while it being a very difficult course, the pros know how to race it strategically. And they worked well with one another without being illegal on the drafting on the bike. And it was a fast day. And but it also tells you the caliber of the pro out there, that many going under. I'm trying to think of the first one that went under 8 hours. When I said it, it might have been
The
somebody
guy
like
from
Pro.
Germany, right? Wasn't it Lothar Leader?
Yeah, Lothar went under 8 hours.
Yeah.
And he was a good guy. And I remember talking to him afterwards. I go, my question was like, I don't believe you did that. That was my question. You know, I was just like being a fan. He goes, yeah, I did, you know. So
Was it Lothar too that I think somebody from Germany they did that race a couple of times and never went back to it because it beat him up so bad. And I don't think it was Lothar after he won it. I can't think of the guy's name, but he just said that Kona is not his race. And he was one of the elite German pros during that time, but said it beat him up so badly, he never went back and did it again.
yeah, there was a few like that. Scott Molina, who won the race in '88, said, I'm never doing this again. McKeely Jones, who won it in 2006, you know, Olympic silver medalist at the first Olympics for triathlon in Sydney in 2000. Short course, it just dominated it. And then got talked into doing an Ironman and went there in '88 and finished like third and said, this is stupid. I'm never doing this again. And then, you know, went back and I'm sorry, in 2005. Then she went back in 2006 and won it. But afterwards said, I'm never doing this. It's not, Ironman isn't built for everybody and not everybody's built for it.
What do you think draws people to keep going back, whether it's doing Kona multiple times or just Ironmans in itself? What do you think it's the draw that keeps people coming back?
That's a good question. I sometimes really don't know. I think the aura and the elixir of what they're injected with when they do an Ironman and get to the finish line, they just want more of it. It's their, you know, Todd, it's their healthy drug of choice. And they just want more. It's all I can explain it with. And I've, John Ragg from Canada has done 200 and like, I probably lost count by now, but 270 Ironmans. Why? But he once told me, he goes, Mike, it's my life. And the answer was almost where, if I read between the lines, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
I would die.
Do
I, I so
how much of that is applicable to you staying in it for as long as you did? Do you have that same thing? Like what kept calling you back? Was it a personal reason? Was it you started to realize how important your voice was to somebody who had been training for years just to hear it? What kept you coming back?
wow, great question. I just think I couldn't stay away from my second family.
Mm,
I just couldn't not visit them. I could not be with them on the holidays, and the holidays with the event days, weekends, whether it was Lake Placid, New Zealand, Wisconsin, Florida, Kona, Germany. I I couldn't keep myself away from my family, my other family, which at times was a strain because I was leaving my family, the
yeah.
one I love. And there was a lot of juggling. My wife Rose is a saint and the strongest person I know in the world of, raising our kids when I was gone. And I would always make a point, I would never be gone. I wouldn't do back to backs and be gone 2, 3 weeks at a time. I would get in and get out. People would say, God, nice, New Zealand, did you go visit here and here? I go, hey, I got there on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. The race was Saturday. I did the awards on Sunday. Sometimes I would stay on Monday and do a touristy thing with some friends, but most of the time, the next morning I'd wake up and go home.
Yep.
And uh, my vacation and my holiday was the event itself and being with everybody that week. Sure, I was in gorgeous places, and I would always get a bike or mountain bike and go explore 2, 3 hours on a morning when I could. And I took advantage of that, but I wasn't going to be gone at weeks on end. So that helped with everything. But Todd, I think the best answer is I just couldn't stay away from my other family.
You know,
That's what I miss. That's what I miss most now. I don't miss the long days. I don't miss my back being sore after standing up for 19 hours. I don't miss my voice feeling like I can't talk again, or all those plane trips and hotel rooms, the stuff you put up with. But I miss the athletes. I miss the smiles at the finish line. I miss the people. I miss my family.
I've done several races that you announced, but there's two that really stuck out for me, and I doubt you remember this. But Ironman New York, the first year they put that on,
Oh wow, yeah.
I remember coming out of the water with I don't know what was on me, but I know it wasn't good from swimming in the Hudson. I high-fived you coming through or whatever, but the next weekend I did Quebec. So I did 2 in 7 days or whatever. In my
Wow.
finish, I remember you saying, he did it again, Todd Crandall. And I remember thinking, yeah, I just did two of those crazy things in a week. And it was that type of mindset hearing you that I started thinking, I want to, it's not about being better than, but I wanted to see how far I could push myself. And when I knew that I was going to do my 100th in Kona, I was like, I'm going to hear Mike say it again. And your voice, when you called me through for my 100th, those are the two most profound times I heard your voice that they'll help me. They've helped me in personal things in my life and also with doing other Ironmans. It's just like, I remember your voice and what you said, and it's helped me to carry on doing the however more I'm going to do. So
And I remember that 100th in Kona, bringing you across. Todd Crandall from Sylvania, Ohio. I remember that.
yeah, yeah, that was an extraordinary just that was a good day. And you calling
Yeah,
me
yeah.
like that was awesome. Yeah. What any questions you want to ask me? I know you had me on your show before, but is anything that comes to mind that we've been talking a little bit today?
Yeah. inspiration comes in all forms. Do you believe for yourself your best mode, or lack of a better word, your best avenue for inspiration towards others? Do you think it's the biggest for you with your words or your actions?
100% actions, without question. I'm in a field where when people talk, I take whatever they're saying as gospel. If you're saying something to me, I believe you, I'm listening to you. But in the line of work with Racing for Recovery, or I don't like calling it work, what I'm privileged to do
Yeah.
with Racing for Recovery, I think people talk before they've acted that can validate what they're saying long enough. That doesn't mean they can't do it. It just means emotionally they get caught up in some new feelings of being sober, and they talk a lot about things, but they haven't healed from the trauma that led them to their addiction. And when that's not dealt with effectively, you see people making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, actions mean everything. Anybody can say anything, but your actions are what are going to validate the eventual words that you say.
Right. I believe that wholeheartedly because I've gone to a lot of uh, in sales through the years to hear a motivational speaker, quote unquote, a motivational speaker, and I'd be listening to him up on stage, and I'd go, all right, there's the words are good. What is this person's background? What have they gone through? Have they gone to the depths of hell and back? Have they? And some have not. They're just trying to preach, this is what you should do this way. And I'd walk away going, hey, I get more out of talking to a finisher and what they went through at a finish line of a race than what this guy just said to me, because the words weren't backed up by action. So I'm glad to hear you say that. That's huge.
Well, I can take it a step further with Ironman because Ironman gave me, I guess, I'll say a third life. Obviously, I was
Yeah.
born with my first one. My second life was creating Racing for Recovery, but it came from doing Ironman. And it's been a great marketing tool for me over the past 25 years of promoting Racing for Recovery. But Ironman has never been to me about how fast I can go or whatever the achievement in the actual race has been. It's been an example to show somebody through action over, a quarter of a century of what can not only be done physically, but spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and most importantly, in service to have other people do their quote own Ironman their own way. I'm proud to say that we have a great staff member here who came through as a client, who became a staff member and has now done 570.3s with me. And
Oh, good.
that's the stuff that I've always liked to showcase through action, not what I've said, but what I've shown through Ironman.
Do you have people come through? I'm just thinking this in a humorous way, like, I can't go to work for that dude. He's going to make me go run a freaking marathon. I got to go ride my bike 50 miles. Well, I'm sure you don't tout that, but it's kind of funny thinking about, oh my gosh, I might have to work out because I'm going to work for Todd.
Yeah, it's become a joke around here on
I'll
both
bet.
sides. Like people say, "Do I have to be an Ironman to work there?" And if the answer is no, but sometimes I'll jokingly say, "Well, if you want to stay employed here, yeah, you got to run an Ironman." But the Ironman to me, and you've talked about it too. It's a mentality. It's a way of life that is not, again, it's not just about the race. It's about how you're living your life, and that's what I like about it.
I gave a talk not last year to a high school sports teams. There was all the sports teams were in there, and I talked about finding your finish line in life and in your events, whether you, and excelling if you're a football player, a wrestler, a volleyball player, whatever it was. And it just, as I was talking like you, there's no notes, and I said, you know what? You have to be an Ironman every day. Yeah, because you have to overcome so much every day. So sometimes at the end of the day, did you do Ironman type things?
Yeah,
Did you excel in that? Well, everybody came up at all the great talk, and the coaches said great. Well, about 4 weeks later, two of these athletes were asked to go talk at the Kiwanis Club, and a friend of mine was there, and the one athlete started talking about, we had this guy come talk. He didn't even remember my name, which was fine. We had this guy come talk to us about Ironman. So my buddy started filming it right away. Well, I got to show this to Reilly. Well, then he started talking about how he said, got to be an Ironman every day. And here, this high school athlete had taken it in and was talking to adults at a Kiwanis Club meeting about how you got to be an Ironman every day.
that's great.
That made my year. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, a 17, 18-year-old talking like that. I didn't tell them they had to do an Ironman or go train to do, you know what I mean? But yet he incorporated it into his life in the way I wanted him to, of being an Ironman every day. I thought that was one of the best. Sometimes you never hear things you say, how they're going to influence people. But when you see an 18-year-old talking about it in a talk to somebody else, that was beautiful.
That's awesome. I'll let you go in a second. I do want to ask you this about your book. Why did you write it? And now that you've seen the impact that it's had, do you ever think about writing another one?
I do think about writing another one. I mean, I wrote it because I was always telling people I was going to write a book. And finally, one day I go, Reilly, you quit talking about it and do it. I had been complacent about it and procrastinated, and I just started putting it all down. And you know the process, Todd. Once I got into it, I go, okay, I can do this. But everybody always asks me about another book, and I've got it in my head. I've got a lot of stories. Right now, my podcast is like my book. Each guest is a chapter, and uh, I don't know. It may be this next year that I sit down and crank it out. Uh, but I've got no set timeline or goal. Maybe if I set a timeline and goal, I'll do it. But I just had a guest on. The podcast isn't out yet. I don't know if you were you ever a part, or did you know anything about the punk rock scene of the 80s and 90s, Todd?
A little bit.
Remember the Cro-Mags?
No.
The punk rock band out of New York, and the lead singer was John Joseph McGowan. Uh, Incredible story of the life he had and the abuse as a kid, and being a drug mule in New York City when he was 15 years old and addicted to everything. He shouldn't be alive. Uh, and his lifestyle in the punk rock era. So when I was interviewing him, I go, oh my God. And he's done 10 or 12 Ironmans. He just he's still insane. He's just one of those punk rock guys from the 80s, and loud, and he's still singing with the band, but he's been clean for 26, 27 years. I think you enjoy it. I'll send you a link. John Joseph McGowan, when he just wrote a great book called Destroying Monsters. And as you know, the monsters are the bad things in your life that come along when you're addicted. So you'll love that. So yeah, I could write a chapter or two about him. I could write a chapter or two about you, and they're in my head. Whether I sit down and do it, we'll see.
Are you going to be over in New Zealand for Worlds this year? Probably not, right?
No, we talked about it, but no, there's no real. I would love, because Taupo is definitely my second home. Uh, I'm very close to so many in that community, the community itself, and that is one of the places in the world. As soon as I land, they know I'm there, and people are greeting me, and I just love that place. But I'm excited for the athletes, and you're going, right?
Yeah, I'm going because it's where everything started. I want to experience that place
Yeah,
again. It's beautiful.
yeah. It's no doubt one of the most beautiful places on earth, and my favorite. I mean, it's just, I will miss it. If I wasn't as close to the holidays, maybe I'd make the trip over and that type of thing. But every day, especially people from Topo area and down there, Reilly, I know you're going to show up. No, I don't think I am.
It was a pleasure meeting you or seeing you again down at Louisville a couple months ago. That was great.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
yeah.
that was good. I know when I saw you were doing it, I go, oh, this is cool. And I saw, quite a few friends that I hadn't seen in a while. My niece did the race, so that's also very cool. And it, being a part of this sport, like I said, the second family. And like if I go to an event and I see somebody like you, it's like, oh, there's my other brother, and you hug and you talk and you walk away feeling better about everything.
Yeah. Mike, I really appreciate you coming on here today. It was great seeing you, my friend.
You too, Todd, and keep doing what you're doing. Our sport is lucky to have you as part of it, and the influence that you've had on so many people. People ask me who my heroes are. People like Todd Crandall's my hero because I know what you're doing that you don't need credit for. Not every day is it out there like, oh, I did this and did that. It's because you're doing those things to make others' lives so much better. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Aloha, brother.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.